Welcome to another half hour of Al-Islam in Focus. Assalamu alaikum, and that is, may God's peace be unto you and who you represent. Not my peace, but God's peace. And so we appreciate you being tuned in today, and we would hope, as always, please call a friend, a neighbor, a relative, a co-worker, someone that you believe that would like to hear information that can help the individual make better choices. We believe our program is substantiated in assisting and allowing for you to hear the positive, the things that's necessary that can help us make better choices to have a better family life, a community life, a better society, and a better country. And so is that possible? Yes, it is possible. It is always going to be possible. Why? Because it has appeared that evil and the devil and ugly and nasty is winning. I beg to differ. There are, I believe, more good people in the world than there are those individuals that want to keep continually doing the things that will keep you down and keep you in prison and keep you going toward the cemetery and to the ER and all other places. And today, we have a guest that's been here before with Imam Zaki Abdul Hamid. And our guest today is here, and he's by himself today. He's not with his co-partner, Mark, and so he's going to have a lot to say to us about some things that I believe is very, very positive. Imam Islam is here speaking to the rabbi that is here, and we look forward to working with him. And as he says, Shalom Alaikum, and our responses to him is, Wa Alaikum Assalam.
It's very good. You know, I thank you very much for being together because, again, exactly what you were saying, that there has to be more positive communication.
Yes.
And, outreach, because people get their news, of course, from the newscast and the newspapers, and that's, they made their opinion from the news. And they think, the Muslims are fighting with the Jews and they're fighting here, and then you get a distorted picture of really what life is. And that's what we're here, I think, to talk reasonably and logically. And there's so much commonality between us. It's just that, like you say, there's Shalom Aleichem, the language is near the same. And there's so many things that are common to both Islam and Judaism.
Absolutely.
And that's important to emphasize to people.
Yes.
That there's more commonality than differences.
Sure. And the significant commonality is our same father, Ibrahim. So what more can you ask for? You expect brothers to fight each other, right? When they got the same lineage, And so let's look at what our rabbi stated to us, is accentuate the positive. We asked the Poughkeepsie Journal back in 1992 that they should amplify half of their newspaper, the positive, and half on what you continually in the media, which is classified as the negative, and their production went skyrocketing because now on the front page of the paper they had both. They were amplifying the positive as well as all the ugly and indecent things that were going on in the world. We would like to encourage all other media forums to try it. Do the same. If you want your ratings to go up, because that's what you're after, ratings, amplify the positive and what would be classified as the negative simultaneously. And let that be amplified, and you will see your ratings go to the limit. And so here today, and I think we want to speak about, as the rabbi just stated, we know when we hear the term Jews, Muslims, first thing come to our mind, fighting. First thing come to my mind, Iran. First thing come to my mind, Israel. First thing come to my mind, Palestine. First thing comes to my mind, the Middle East. So give us some clarity. Give us some important things that you need to share with us so we can have a better understanding and allow for our people to be more rational and be more practical in their understanding of this way of life.
Well, that's very important because exactly what you were just saying, the problems are in the Middle East with Israel, and Judaism is above that. I mean, Judaism didn't have Israel for 2,000 years. They were exiled 2,000 years ago, the Jewish people, and been wandering around. It's only very recent history that the land of Israel. Of course, the Jewish people are always wanted to yearn, even in our prayers, to go back to Israel. So it's a very central point. But if you're talking about Israeli government issues, that's not necessarily Jewish issues. And just like everything in America, once you deal with politics and government, no one agrees on everything. So, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe passed away now 25 years ago, but he was always emphasizing the positive things. He didn't get up there and oy vey, like in Yiddish.
Sure.
Oy, this is a problem, and that's a problem. He'd always want to say, like you were saying, how to correct things. Let's look at the solution.
Yes.
Instead of moaning and groaning.
Absolutely.
And oy, there's so many problems around.
Absolutely.
You've heard about the Lubavitcher Rebbe? I mean,
I heard a little of it, but maybe you can expound on it to give us some more clarity if you like, please.
Yeah, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was the leader of the Lubavitch Chassidim, but not only that, but he really felt he was the leader of, and we feel, of all Jewish people, and really the truth of the matter of the non-Jews. Not to tell, Judaism is not into missionizing at all, but there are 613 mitzvahs for the Jewish people, and Maimonides, who did live in Egypt about 900 years ago, emphasized that there were 7, I mean, it was always part of Judaism,
Sure.
but he emphasized 7, called B'nai Noah, because you just said that we're all from Abraham, but even beforehand, we're all from Noah, if people know about the story in the
Sure.
Old Testament. So there's 7 universal laws. No one's want to make anybody Jewish, but just don't kill and don't steal and just forbid sexual acts and the like, and not to worship idols.
Yes.
And that's universal for all mankind, and the Rebbe
Absolutely.
did emphasize that. And that's really our mission, is just to, because really for us, Judaism, you were just saying there's so much positive, in the world, but the truth is there's so much assimilation in the Jewish people.
Sure.
And the Rebbe says, get out there, go to meet these people. I mean, even though it was centered in Brooklyn,
Yes.
the movement, but go out to the entire world, Hong Kong, wherever there's Jewish people, and strengthen Judaism.
Yes.
But also as an idea that also to tell non-Jews, the Gentiles, that there are 7 mitzvahs, and, like we were saying, accentuate the positive, because as
Absolutely.
we know, there's really so many problems in the world. And truth of the matter is, I once went to a non-Jewish mayor and says, could you make a resolution, which is non-binding, but it's nice to emphasize about these 7 Noachid laws. And he was a little skeptical, he was looking.
Of course.
And then he read it, and he says, well, there's nothing I can disagree with.
Yes.
You know what, you're going to say you can't steal, I don't like, don't kill, don't commit idols. So that's really the idea that if humankind can commit to those 7 mitzvahs and commandments,
Sure.
and it's more than that. It's just honoring your parents, for example.
Yes.
Or just living, as maybe you'd say in Yiddish, like a mensch, like
Yes.
a normal person, and don't hurt people.
That's right.
Those kind of the golden rule. Then surely, the world would be a better place.
Absolutely. Well, we have a program prior to this program called Words Made People, and we believe that there are certain words that define themselves. And so definition gives direction. And so as you stated, you mentioned Prophet Abraham, may peace and blessings be upon him. And you mentioned going back to Noah. And so we can always go back to, for those who believe, back to what is classified as the first man, Adam. Okay?
Right, good.
And so we understand this concept now. We try to share information with people, not to convince them to become a Muslim, as you're not trying to convince them to become a Jew, a Jewish person, but to convince them to become more human and more balanced and more sober and practical. And so the understanding we have is that the Creator is so just and so merciful and so forgiving that He put in our nature that you don't really need a book. He put in our nature that before you cheat, in the word cheat is the word heat. In the word heat is the word eat. If you cheat, you're going to catch the heat, you won't eat. In the word trust is the word rust. In the word rust is the word us. If there's no trust between us, it's going to turn to rust. So before you get ready to steal, your nature is telling you, don't go there. Before you get ready to lie, your nature is telling you, don't go there. You don't need a rabbi or an imam or a priest or whoever on the outside of you to tell you not to do wrong. Your nature is going to share information with you prior to you thinking about going contrary to the natural order of things. And so people can't really come up with say, I have an excuse. They have to admit that they're involved in the number one crime, and that is self-abuse. How do you use yourself, or how do you allow yourself to be used? In other words, you may have habits, learned habits, without understanding how you got that habit. And for many of our people, we got them from plantation life. here it goes again. Definition gives direction. In the word plantation is the word plant. In the word plant is the word plan. What was the plan that was planted in the minds of those from slavery, from plantation life, that they are perpetuating right now? So I only say that only because every ethnicity was enslaved, but not like the African American. The African American was enslaved, and their entire inheritance was stolen from them. Their food, their language, their religion, their culture, their dress, their education. Not like any other ethnicity. Does that make them special? That makes them different in a sense, but still, they still have in their nature not to go contrary, even though they were made to some degree to live a life that was inconsistent with their natural order, with their soul, so forth and so on.
But you're saying that really you need God, you need a higher authority to keep a person straight. You can't just say from themselves, just because it is ultimately, you are right, but Hasidics would teach you have a godly soul, but you do also have an animal soul. And it is also a constant struggle between the two. And you're right that you can use your mind to think, am I an animal or am I a human being?
Sure.
But you do need the power of God.
Sure.
And you do need the Bible and all the teachings to teach a person, to uplift them.
That's right.
But it's interesting. I always say this about, you talk about slavery, and like I say, I learn everything. And really, if you dig deep, you find everything in the Bible and in the Torah. And the Jewish people were enslaved. Everybody knows, again, if you read the Bible, you surely know the story.
Of course.
About the Jewish people being enslaved. But it's very, very interesting. Before they were free, there was a 40-year incubation, if you want to call it that way, in the desert to mold them as a people. And I say that's very interesting, because I say that about the African Americans, that they were, no one was around them, but you can just imagine, all of a sudden, hey, you were a slave, and maybe your parents and grandparents were slaves. Okay, now you're free. Okay, wait a minute, you have to be trained. You have to be, on a higher level. You can't just say you're free.
Sure.
Look at the Jewish people. Yeah, you're free. No, you're free. Well, first of all, you have a Torah, then you have to learn it, and then you have to mold as a people. And I think that's really a little bit with injustice to the black people. They didn't, okay, you're free, which is very nice, but, you got to, teach people, this, you're on your own. You can only imagine a person didn't have money and they didn't have a life, and now all of a sudden hey, get your own job. Wait a minute, I was just told I work in the plantation. Okay, go and get a job. Well,
That's
how?
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Just like today, you can't just out of high school, okay, you're on your own, get training.
Sure.
So I think...
Well, you're very much correct, because as we stated earlier, we spoke about the systemic inequities in the society. The systemic inequities is that even though the African American in America was told they were free, and they didn't know their culture, they didn't know their dress, they didn't know their language, they didn't know their religion, that was all taken away from them, like no other ethnicity. Any other ethnicity that was enslaved, whether it was the Italians or the Greeks or the Germans or whatever it might have been, they still had their dress and their culture and their language and their religion that they knew about, that they spoke, that they shared with one another, but not like the African American, which made them very different in the sense of saying, now you're free, go and try to practice, or go and practice the way of life that you were from Africa after 200 years, 300 years, or whatever it might have been. There's a difference there to understand that. And so when we know that the number one crime is self-abuse, and how you abuse yourself now, they had learned habits from plantation life on how fear was put into them. And if you were to, for instance, look at a European woman, you were lynched, not on your own. You were lynched in the entire community. They would bring the whole entire community out and say, if in fact you look at a European woman or say anything to her, this is what's going to happen to you. That put such a fear into them like never before, because they didn't know their history, or didn't know their language, or didn't know their religion from the past. So when it was time for them to read, and they were lynched for reading, but when it was time for them to read now, they were given the book, the Bible. and the Bible was given to them so that they can live out the lifestyle that was given in a way not like the Jewish people in the Torah, in the language that it was revealed or translated, but in a language from different versions. And so we really look forward to recognizing, as you stated, which is very, very clear, let's accentuate the positive, and how can we not share the differences? And let's look at how we can see ourselves as human beings, and that we all cry the same, that we all laugh the same. We all have the same desires and wants for ourselves and our family and community, and that the laws should be changed and not allowed for the so-called privileged or the so-called entitled. We believe, as you stated, God has entitled everyone. God has allowed everyone to be privileged if they understand that what has truly been enslaved was the soul. And once the soul is enslaved, your intelligence is enslaved, your behavior is enslaved, and all the rest. But as you stated again now, there are people that rely on God to intervene on their behalf. We believe God wants you to do what you know what you're supposed to do to be free. And then if in fact you can't get justice in society the way it is in America in particular, God is obligated to divinely intervene, to come in and help make it better for all mankind. So I concur, and we concur on this level here, and we want to see how we can work. You mentioned the group that you're involved with, and so you mentioned how there are those in preoccupied Palestine, Philistine, and our leader, the largest Muslim community in North America, stated to us that you are brothers in that area. Why don't you split the land up and live in separate states and be decent and be kind to one another and be practical and have peace, and understand that killing each other and having hatred for each other, that traumatizes you for generations to come. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right. It's very interesting. In Judaism, Jewish people have, like I said, their special mission, but then all other people are really the same. So that's very important over here. And that's not just modern age.
Right.
You're talking about ancient ideas. So, now you say nowadays, we'll say, everybody holds that way. Yeah, but we're in the 21st century.
That's right.
And even slaves were freed 150 years ago. And we're talking thousands of years ago. So Judaism is really then, very much an equal opportunity, if you want to say it that way, for, like you said, all human beings. I don't want to get into the Israel position. You read the Bible, I know you do. And Israel was given to the Jewish people, and, it was always our homeland, and our prayers for eternity was like, let's return, part of the prayers, blessed are you, God, to return the divine presence to Zion. So Jewish people have always looked at Jerusalem. The Western Wall is there. That's from the temple 2,000 years ago. And even today you see Jewish people flock, even if they're not religious. They just have a feeling for Israel. So that's very important. But that doesn't preclude, and again, like I learn everything from the Bible, not only the 5 books of Moses, but of course there's the prophets also. Sure. It's not just the 5 books of Moses, to say the least. There's so much more. Okay. And there were, there's nothing against in Judaism of living peace treaties. There were many times peace treaties amongst their neighbors and the Jewish people. And nothing precludes that it shouldn't happen again, that live in peace. But like you say, instead of fighting each other, just saying, hey, we can be just friends, and that would be best for everybody. Because like you said, and it is totally true, the one you hurt most when you do wrong, maybe you steal from someone, you're hurting yourself. Absolutely. So you're saying you grow up in a society with hate, and let's say, maybe you hurt other people because you're fighting, but really you're hurting your own society and yourselves, as that's how you're growing up and teaching hate. So really, that's what I'm saying. If everybody would just saying, hey, like you say, ultimately we're brothers and we're human beings for sure, and let's just get along, it would be the best for everybody. Yeah, we really want peace. It would be the best for everybody.
Sure. Our greeting to each other is peace. Our greeting to people is shalom alaikum. Our greetings is assalamu alaikum. Not my peace, but God's peace. peace from God on you and who you represent. And so when we say that with conviction and with meaning and substance, then we can be more honest and sincere with ourselves and say, yes, I want this for all people, not just for me, and think I'm above and everyone else is below because I might have been here first or that. But let's look at the long road and where's it going to lead for our children. Because what happens then if we go contrary, the devil, the Satan comes in and manipulates. And then he begins to get our children on drugs and alcohol. Muslim children, African American children, Italian children, their children is involved in so much drugs and alcohol, and it's all over now. There's no community that's exempt from crack, from all types of alcohol and criminality and gambling and all the things that Satan invites you to. Satan has them coming toward that way of life, and believe me, you would never think that my child would do anything like that. Absolutely not, but it can happen.
No, you're absolutely right. And usually I don't take a political stand because I'm just really emphasizing Judaism. But this idea of legalizing drugs, I think, is absolutely the worst thing in the world, because I know you work with, like, I don't know, maybe not as a social worker, but really as a social worker, you're working with people, and I do too, even though I'm a rabbi. But, I mean, it's helping people, so call it a social worker. And these drugs to ruin people, they destroy marriages. It's terrible, and they destroy themselves.
We have to see it. We legalize alcohol, prohibition. We legalize gambling. We say gambling is going to help our educational system, and the money we're going to get from the gambling is going to allow for us to have equal but same schools all over. We still don't see that, right? And so, we have to understand that the Creator, God, the heavens and the earth, created marijuana for a good reason, created cocaine for a good reason, created all the things that the pharmaceutical is benefiting from to allow for us to think that this is what's needed. And so I concur that we have to be able to be more courageous, stand up more in our religious views and share information with people, because they're not hearing us the way they're hearing the Satan and the way the Satan is advertising on television that you should be involved in this.
I got a little Hasidic story for you, because
some
of these great rabbis argued with God. And he said,
Imagine that. Imagine that.
It's beautiful. I'll tell you a little story. So this is from Reb Levi Yitzhak All right, it lived about 200 years ago. And he'd always look for the merit. He's saying, God, you're not fair. It's not right. Like an attorney, it's not. And he would say, you got this whole big world, and like you're saying, and drugs are everywhere, and alcohol and commercials are everywhere, and you got the good thing in one book. One little book in the Bible. He says, why don't you do the opposite? Have everything good around the world, and if anybody wants to do something wrong, you put that in one little book over here to find out what's wrong. But you do the opposite. So it's exactly what you're saying. And really, again, for our youth, they're being bombarded. Again, in society, they're telling these perverse kind of lifestyles, and like I was saying, the drugs, and there's legalizing. Okay, it's all right. The government's all right.
Absolutely,
gambling's all right. I'm providing money for the state. That's great. What am I doing? And these things are really just the wrong things for anybody. And all right, if a person like gamble, like people ask me, I says, listen, if you can go to a Yankees game or you go get a little bit, but people get caught up in these terrible things.
Well, that's where they start. If they start with the little gambling, it becomes bigger because they think they can get into more and more money, and they become more and more corrupt. So when they understand this concept of television, telling a vision, what's the vision they're telling you? They're feeding you appetites that you can't afford. And when you say World Wide Web, who makes webs? Spiders. For what purpose? To catch their suckers. Catch their suckers how? To feed them appetites that they can't afford. And how do they do it? Repeat it over and over and over again. So I have to ask you this question. Maybe you may not know or not, but when the commercials come on, the television volume automatically goes up. as if there's a ghost that allows for the volume to go up so they can hear the commercial.
You know that? I
Yes.
didn't even know that.
This is so accurate. And so we recognize and understand that it's not so much about the program. For instance, NFL. It's about the commercials on the on NFL to feed you appetites that you can't afford. Rabbi, we have 4 minutes left. And so we want you to share
Having
what
a good time over
listen, this is how people should see how we can converse, have our differences, but understand that there are likes and move toward the positive collectively. Share, Rabbi.
Excellent. Well, I think that's the important point, and that's like what you said, and we've been saying all along, that there's so many things that we're alike to. And, you know, one of the ideas also is we call Mashiach in Hebrew, or the Messiah. And that's ultimately a goal. There's a goal in life also. It's not just, well, live for today, which again is people, we live for today. There's a past history, and we say that about everything. Learn the history because you won't have to repeat it if anything is wrong. And look towards the future. And what is the future? Is the Messiah. And when the Messiah comes, it says all people will know God. And I know a lot of people say, oh, the bombs and things like that. It's not a Jewish concept.
Sure.
Again, very positive that, well, people will all get together and using the, like you say, there is technology, television, there's computers, but using that positive sense. What if television would only tell you about good things?
Yes.
You know, and it reaches into everybody's home.
Yes.
You know, that would be an incredible idea that, you know, in computers, and I know
there are programs that do accentuate the positive.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of junk on the computers, to say the very least. On the other hand, and the big other hand, is that you could use it for a positive idea.
Absolutely.
People are, you know, at work, oh, I got 10 minutes, and let them learn something positive about it. So the goal is just, again, not only accentuate the positive, but snowball it and grow, that there are more and more people, like you're saying, what you're doing and what I'm doing is just to bring the positive message. And a little bit what you're saying also I agree with. Intrinsically, every person wants to be good. And it's
in the nature.
You're just being fed so much, and that's kind of our job, I guess, is just to tell people, don't look for the outside noise. Focus on what's important in life, important for the human being, and really important to God and the future of the world. Let's bring the world to a better climate. You know, I mean, you can use the positive sense. There's more and more food. Let's feed the hungry, for example. Or like I say, telecommunication. Let's get the word out like what we're doing right now to the good things. Use it for the positive idea. And then we'll have, it says, the Maimonides, who was from Egypt, and it's encyclopedia books. It would be this long, and his last words, he said, the ultimate idea of after all the Judaism and all the laws is that we're going to hope that there's, not only hope, because we're promised, really, that there will be an end to the era where there will be no fighting and no hatred. There'll be food for everybody, all the good things for everybody, and they won't even need, you won't need the candy bar because your real delight will be in knowing God.
Excellent.
That's how he said. That'll be the highest level.
You heard it from the rabbi. Here it is, the rabbi and imam speaking truth to power and speaking truths about what God has said in the scriptures. And here we are sharing knowledge that we believe. If you heard us and share and get this information, that it'll allow for you to do as the rabbi just stated. Listen to the voice that's telling you to go for it, the positive. Don't listen to the voice that's telling you to do the ugly, the nasty, the indecent, the disrespectful, and the cheap. Go for it. Be proper, be right, regardless of what everyone else is doing. You make sure you're doing what you know what you're supposed to do, and your Lord will be pleased with you. And on that day he's talking about, it will happen. Thank you for tuning in today. Rabbi, I look forward to another day in the future. We really appreciate the program today. May God's peace be unto you and yours. Shalom alaikum and assalamu alaikum.